justice's safety. Earlier in 2018, Congress had allocated $700,000 more for the Supreme Court than it had requested. The extra funds went towards security. The bloodlust grew worse the following day, the close of the term, when Justice Anthony Kennedy announced his retirement. The vacancy on the High Court promised to dominate the 2018 midterm elections, as the previous vacancy had dominated the 2016 presidential election. One Nation, a hybrid political action committee aligned with McConnell, began running ads the next day in Indiana, Florida, Michigan, Missouri, Montana, North Dakota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Wisconsin, states that Trump had carried and where Democratic senators were up for re-election. McConnell's ads mention no prospective replacement for Kennedy, but Don McGahn, the White House counsel, already had a man in mind. He called Brett Kavanaugh, a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, hours after Kennedy announced his retirement. Although Kavanaugh was not yet a household name, he was well known in Washington and seemed to have first appeared on Trump's radar in 2016. John Malcolm, a senior legal fellow and the director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation, worked to develop a list of potential Supreme Court nominees that Trump's presidential campaign used to woo skeptical conservatives loyal to the GOP competitors whom Trump defeated in 2016. Trump's campaign also relied on the Federalist Society, a national organization of conservative lawyers and judges, for assistance in compiling the public list. In March, Malcolm had included Kavanaugh in his first draft, which informed Trump's decision-making. But neither Kavanaugh nor Gorsuch was on the list that Trump published during the campaign. I think that there were some conservatives who were a little skeptical about a couple of decisions that Judge Kavanaugh wrote. Probably, but most prominently, an opinion that he wrote. It's called the Seven Sky Case, that involved the challenge to the constitutionality of the individual mandate and Obamacare, Malcolm recalled in July 2018. Kavanaugh dissented from the majority opinion upholding the mandate, arguing that the court did not have jurisdiction to decide the matter. But there were signs in his dissent that he might have upheld the mandate for the same reasons that Chief Justice John Roberts eventually did. The Seven Sky dissent was a red flag for many conservatives, but it did not bother Malcolm. McGahn was likewise unbothered. Kavanaugh was eventually added to President Trump's shortlist of Supreme Court candidates on November 17, 2017. Addressing the Federalist Society's National Lawyers Convention in Washington that day, McGahn announced that the president had refreshed the list with 5 new names. He first cited Judge Amy Coney Barrett, who was confirmed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit 1 month earlier, alluding to the bitter hearings in which the ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Dianne Feinstein of California, questioned the compatibility of the nominee's Catholic faith with the duties of a judge. "The dogma lives loudly within you," Feinstein scolded. "Judge Dogma is on the list," McGahn informed the audience, which responded with applause. But when he announced the addition of Kavanaugh to the list, the crowd cheered. "He's winning on the applause meter," McGahn said of Kavanaugh before proceeding down the list. It was no surprise that Kavanaugh was the fan favorite. A lifelong resident of the Washington area, he had held important White House positions and had been a federal judge for more than a decade. This was his home turf. Barrett had clerked for the D.C. Circuit and the Supreme Court and had practiced law in Washington, but she had since returned to her native Indiana and joined the faculty of Notre Dame Law School. When the Trump administration began searching for a nominee to the Seventh Circuit, she was not the first choice. Vice President Mike Pence's office, looking for an Indiana judge for the seat, approached Nicole Garnett of Notre Dame Law School. She was not interested, however, and directed Pence's office to her colleague, Amy Coney Barrett. The women had become friends during their 1998 to 1999 Supreme Court clerkships, Barrett with Scalia, Garnett with Clarence Thomas. And Barrett